So, Ohio State will head on the road to Southern California to take on USC, and Buckeye fans have been waiting for this matchup ever since USC had joined the Big Ten, and I am telling you, the Trojans could pull off this upset. Let's talk about it.
That one earlier pass, he comes in off the corner, they go deep, they got a man open! Takes it to the house for the game's first touchdown.
Hold by Barrett at the goal line, he's in. That's a Buckeye touchdown. His last game. An Indy line uniform, there's an interception. David Webb, pick six of Sam Darnold.
Police officer Pete Carroll has not talked about it and said he'll talk about it.
For the end zone.
Design run and a broken tackle for Chancey back. There he goes. Barrett to the house.
And Lawrence back in his slot back. Doggy pitches to Simpson. He throws a pass, and it is Escobar intercepting.
So, Ohio State is in another championship year with returning quarterback Julian Sand and year 3 of Jeremiah Smith. It's unbelievable. It feels like Jeremiah Smith was just coming in as a freshman, and now he is taking his last trip around the Big Ten. Hopefully he can get another win, another ring, and maybe a bullet in a coffin, a Heisman. But when you look at last year for Ohio State, that a very disappointing ending to the season with back-to-back losses versus Indiana in the Big Ten Championship and Miami after starting 12-0 and the number 1 team in the country. But now, with the hardest schedule in the entire country, what was the thing that plagued Ohio State last year? They were not ready for the big games because they didn't play a very hard schedule. You had Texas at the beginning of the year, and then you had Michigan at the end of the year, which was not very hard, but it was still a rivalry game. But aside from that, the middle of that schedule, everything except for those 2 games was pretty meh. There wasn't really a single good team. But now they have the hardest schedule in the country and the hardest schedule in their program history. They will have to take USC on the road right after playing Indiana and right before Oregon. So this game is really sandwiched in between some of the 2 biggest games of the entire year in college football, and will be on the road. Now on the other side, Lincoln Riley has had I've talked about this in my USC Oregon early preview. If you have not watched that one, you should go watch it. It'll be pinned up here. He has a million Heisman winners. Now he has a returning quarterback in Jada Maiava, who, just how I think he is better than Dante Moore, I actually think Jada Maiava has the chance to be better than Julian Sand. And maybe you could say Julian Sand has better NFL potential, but I think Jada Maiava is more of a college elite, gunslinger, and will be more explosive. And, that's what the Heisman looks for. They want that most outstanding, most exciting player, not, the most efficient, like what Julian Sand was last year. And I actually think that Jada Maiava has a better chance at winning a Heisman than Julian. And if you haven't watched my Heisman prediction video, you should go watch that. I actually had Jada Maiava as a Heisman finalist, and I did not have Julian Sand as a Heisman finalist. So this will be a big question mark for USC is, hey, can this high upside quarterback really, take in his full potential and potentially becoming a Heisman finalist, maybe even a Heisman winner, which if he was that good would help him win this game. Even though I think USC is usually overrated in the polls, I actually think this year's a real year for USC. I think for the first time in a while, I said this in my USC Oregon video, Lincoln Riley has a Heisman level quarterback and a top 25 level defense. And what I said before, this is kind of, groundbreaking. This is new for a USC fan, or really anyone that's been a fan of Lincoln Riley. It's always the offense is great and the defense is god-awful, but now, Jada Maiava is not Baker Mayfield, and he's not, Caleb Williams, but he could be someone like a, Jaden Daniels, like he won the Heisman. Jaden Maiava kind of reminds me a little bit of a Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels was better on the ground, but I think they are somewhat similar, and I definitely think that Jada Maiava was pretty good last year. He had the 2nd highest QBR in the country. Now, I think he could maybe be number 1. We'll see with CJ Carr, Julian Sand, Dante Moore, Arch Manning, but I definitely think that he could definitely be elite this year. If you look at the history of this matchup, there are a total of 24 meetings in this matchup. This isn't a rivalry game, but trust me, these fan bases hate each other, especially our parents. If USC fans ask their parents, and if Buckeye fans, if we ask our parents, how do we feel about USC? It is almost as much as Michigan. A lot of people a lot of older Buckeye fans, they hate USC more than they hate Miami or more than they hate Penn State or Alabama or even Clemson or Georgia. They hate USC. USC is almost like the second rival of Ohio State for some older Buckeye fans just because of how often these two teams would play. In the history, USC does lead this series 13-10 with one tie. The last time these two guys played was in the Cotton Bowl in 2017. Ohio State won 24-7. Remember, this was JT Barrett versus Sam Darnold, Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold, and it was Urban Meyer versus Clay Helton. And this was, right before, or a couple years before Lincoln Riley got there. So this was the past regime for these two teams. Now it's going to be Ryan Day versus Lincoln Riley. And I definitely think that Ohio State fans have been waiting. I know that 2017 win was nice, but we've been waiting to get back on the scoreboard and get one up on USC. And now we get to do it in the Coliseum. It has been, it's been a tragedy. It's like, for some reason, this game, USC goes to the Big Ten, and we have to wait 2 years to get this game played. But it's finally happening, and it'll happen in the Coliseum. And hopefully, Ohio State can get the win and beat the Trojans. All right, so I will throw up the graphic now. This is our position battle, and if you have not watched our early prediction videos, I'll tell you how this works. There are 13 data points. We have quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, edge rusher, linebacker, cornerback, safety. Those are 10, and then special teams 11, coaching 12, and then home field advantage 13. On the graphic, it actually doesn't show home field advantage, but I will be counting it. So let's start off at quarterback. So between Jada Maiava and Julian Sayin, I actually am going to give the edge to Jada Maiava. I think Lincoln Riley, I know people crap on him as a head coach because of the defense, but trust me, this guy is an offensive mastermind. And I would say Day is too, but we have not, he called the plays for that Miami game. Where was the offense? Ever since Cal McCord, Ryan has kind of lost that ability to be, this offensive miracle. So I'm going to still give it to Lincoln Riley. I think these two quarterbacks were very similar. Last year, Julian Sayin had the better stats, but also he had way better talent, and he had a much easier schedule with a much better supporting cast. But Julian Sayin is still was a Heisman finalist, no matter if you want to say it was warranted. He got to New York, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But I definitely think that Jada Maiava right now, or halfway through the season, this game happens in I think week 9, could. I'm going to give the edge to Jada Maiava. Right now, he had a higher QBR. And, look, we saw what Julian Sayin was in the Michigan, Indiana, Miami game. Even that Texas game. He holds on the ball for a while. Pressure comes. He can sometimes get the ball accurately. But when the processing slows down, which is usually fast, but, man, when that slows down, he's not great he's not great at extending plays. That's something that Jada Maiava is. When we talk about comparing college quarterbacks in college, their ability on the ground is elite. And Julian Sayin right now does not have that. Don't think he will. I think he'll be better at it, but I'm going to give it to Jada Maiava. So I'm going to say Jada Maiava right now is better than Julian Sayin, so I'll give the edge to USC. At running back, it is close. I'm going to give this one to Ohio State. Bo Jackson and Isaiah West were hurt for spring, but that rotation, they were two freshmen last year, and they were amazing. Isaiah West was very good supplementally, and then Bo Jackson, as a true freshman, defeated Michigan single-handedly. He was one of maybe the best freshman running back in the country last year. Now I definitely think he could be a top 10 running back. For USC, they also have a great depth at running back with King Miller and Waymo Jordan. I got a lot of heat for my Oregon USC video for saying, well, King Miller's not our starter. I'm like, okay, it's spring. The depth charts, guys, the depth charts have not been settled yet. I get, okay, Waymo Jordan is probably over King Miller, but I knew King Miller. It's literally just for the graphic. This is more about the entire room than the potential star power. But Waymo Jordan and King Miller, I definitely think it's close, but I'm going to give it to Ohio State just because, man, Bo Jackson was like a top 15, 20 running back in the country last year as a true freshman. And I get King Miller, I think, was like a walk-on, but I think Bo Jackson can take that step with the coaching staff, with Mr. No Soft Cookies. So I'm going to give the edge to Ohio State. Now at wide receiver, this is obviously Ohio State. Ohio State has the best wide receiver room in the country every year. But usually I would say this room would be closer. If you look at last year, there was a lot of debate, as you know, is it USC or Ohio State? Who has a better wide receiver room? And USC, they've had a lot of guys transfer out. 2 years ago, Zachariah Branch. Now they're losing Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. So they're replacing basically their whole receiver room with Tanook Hines, Terrell Anderson, and the guy they just flipped from Ohio State, Ken Dixon Wyatt, who I think was a 4 or 5 star depending on where you looked. He will be an impactful freshman. But for Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, Chris Henry Jr., Brandon Ennis, that's just the starters. You also have Devin McEwen, Kyle Parker, Jaquaden Guilford, Brock Boyd. Ohio State they take it all in the wide receiver room. So I'm going to give it to Ohio State in a blowout. Probably the biggest blowout in this entire thing is the wide receiver room. I think Ohio State easily clears. For tight end, I'm going to give it to USC. And if you want to make a case that Ohio State's tight end room will be more productive because of the coaching of Arthur Smith and how they're going to use it, then sure, you could say, schematically, Ohio State's tight end might be more efficient than USC's, but Mark Bowen, the 5-star they just got. Look, Ohio State doesn't recruit 5-star tight ends. Nate Roberts was a true freshman last year, was a fullback. I get he's a tight end, but he played fullback. Will probably be the starter this year with Hunter Welsing and Mason Williams. There's not a star. We don't have a Cade Stover or a G. Scott, or even, maybe even a Max Clare. We don't have that this year. And I wish we had Will Kazmarek. And if we had Kazmarek, I'd probably put Ohio State at 1. But they got Nate Roberts, who I think will be amazing. Just wait till that junior and senior season. But for right now, I'm going to give the edge to USC. Even though I just kind of criticized Nate Roberts for being a freshman, Mark Bowen's a 5-star. I'm going to give it to USC. It could be a toss-up. Ohio State has a deep room, but with USC, they got a 5-star. That's going to be a big passing threat, so I'm going to give it to them. For offensive line, this is a complete toss-up because both these offensive lines were decent last year. They were returning almost all of their starters, but when it really mattered most, they did not really, they weren't great. For USC, they were returning all 5 starters, but they allowed 14 sacks to Jada Maiava last year. That's a problem. They're going to mesh well. They'll get that bigger bond together, those 5 guys, but those 5 guys also allowed 14 sacks. That's like 1.2 sacks per game. Same with Ohio State. They're returning 4 starters, but they're upgrading after losing Tegra, which we're all thankful he left to go to Kentucky. I think that's where he went. I think he went to either North Carolina or Kentucky. But they are replacing him with what we think is Ian Moore, and we think Austin or Phil can maybe slide in. We'll see. Maybe Josh Padilla wants to slide out at right guard, but really Ian Moore should be starting at tackle, and then either Austin or Phil should slide in. Really, I think Phil Daniels should slide in, and then Austin will stay at right tackle. That's, I think, how it would be perfectly. But I'm still gonna say it's a toss-up. I mean, look at Ohio State's offensive line when it came to Miami in Indiana. Like, they played well against Texas and they played well against Michigan, but man, when it really, Indiana did not have like a star defensive line last year. They had Aiden Fisher and they had some other really good guys, but even against them, they struggled. Against Purdue and Wisconsin, they struggled with stunts. Against Miami, Akeem Metzidor and Ruben Bain, destroyed this Ohio State offensive line. But I think them returning most of the starters for Ohio State, 5 for USC. I just want to see it first, so I'll just say it's a toss-up. For defensive line, I'm going to give it to Ohio State. And the defense, this is really where Ohio State takes the lead. With Edric Houston, Kenyatta Jackson, Will Smith, and Zion Grady, I think those guys, not Zion Grady. He is here. Kenyatta Jackson's an edge. I messed up my graphic. With what we think will be Edric Houston, Will Smith, and John Walker. Maybe Quay Russaw if he wants to slide inside. He hasn't done it yet. I don't think he will. I definitely think that is better than Jai Babazari and Jakeem Stewart for USC. I've just seen him where Will Smith has looked so violent in camp for Ohio State. He's probably, him and Kenyatta are the best 2 players on this defensive line. And then we'll talk about the defensive line. We'll slide out to edge. I'm also going to give it to Ohio State. Kenyatta Jackson. I will try to, if I don't do it and I forget, I'm sorry. But I'll try to remember to throw it up now of the photo shoot of the new Ohio State uniforms in the Sub-Zero, the all whites with Kenyatta. I looked at that and I'm like, oh my God, that's Kenyatta. This dude is a monster. This dude got so much bigger. And maybe it's because he wore the bag. I think it's what it was. He wore the baggy sleeves, so you never got to see like what his body shape actually looked like. But man, him showing it off, he looks incredible. He's going to be a top 5, top 10 edge rusher this year. And that paired with Zion Grady, the freshman, and Quay Russaw, we'll see. You're losing Arvell, who was kind of your best edge rusher last year. He was a linebacker, but he kind of played at edge. And you're losing Caleb Downs, who also would go and blitz sometimes. You're losing a lot, so you're going to need Kenyatta to step up. But I think Braylon Shelby for USC is good, and then Luke Wafel, he's a freshman. I want to see it first. I want to see it first. And I know I gave the tight end thing to USC. I'm being a little bit inconsistent, but bear with me. I know Ohio State's tight end room. It's not elite. But for edge, I know Kenyatta, he is elite. We saw Zion Grady in some of the garbage time last year. He has the potential to be elite either this year or next year. So I'm going to give the edge to Ohio State. For linebacker, I'm going to say it's a toss-up. Ohio State's got Peyton Pierce and Riley Pettijohn. Riley Pettijohn missed spring. You also have Christian Alliegro, who the transfer from Wisconsin. Again, talking about the photo shoot, when you had the All Reds, Peyton Pierce was there. So it looks like Peyton Pierce is probably going to start over Christian Alliegro, or maybe Riley Pettijohn falls and Christian Alliegro and Peyton Pierce both start. But with USC, they got Desmond Stephens II. I don't know much about USC's wide or linebacker room, and Ohio State's linebacker room has so many questions. We want to see it first. When you bring these guys from Wisconsin or like from these lower tier schools, they have the chance where they could be good, but a lot of times they're just very meh. Look at Bo Atkinson. I didn't even talk about Bo Atkinson. That's how kind of like meh he was last year from North Carolina. But I'm going to say it's a toss-up. We'll probably lean Ohio State because of the coaching of James Laurinaitis. But for now, I'll say it's a toss-up. For cornerback, I'm also going to give it to Ohio State. Ohio State, man, they just have depth. They have Devin Sanchez, Jermaine Matthews, Cam Calhoun, Dominic Kelly. They are losing Igbinosun, and they're losing Lorenzo Styles. And USC does have Marcel Williams and John Tez Williams, who I'm very high on John Tez Williams this year. But, even with like the nickel, Ohio State has depth at nickel. Is it Earl Little? Is it Terry Moore? Both were very highly recruited guys. And I'll give the edge to Ohio State. That'll bring us to safeties. I'm also going to give it to Ohio State with Jalen McClain, Earl Little, and Terry Moore. That is the best safety room in the country. I think Jalen McClain could be, I thought Terry Moore could be the best safety in the country. I thought he was probably the second best safety in the country behind Caleb Downs in 24. He was hurt last year with an ACL. Does not seem like he is fully healthy or he's going to really have a huge impact this year. So it looked like there might have been a regression, or maybe just the ACC is that weak and the play from the ACC is not translating well to the Big Ten. But Earl Little, who was hard hitting but was he only flashed at Florida State, has really shown up today, and I think he'll probably be that box safety with Jalen McClain, Jalen McClain was overshadowed by Caleb Downs. Man, Jalen McClain was special last year. You look at the Michigan game or the Texas game or the Miami Indiana game, there were times where the running back or the receiver gets past everyone. Jalen McClain is the last guy there to make that tackle at that kind of free safety role. And I'm going to put that over, Alex Graham, Christian Pierce. So I'm going to give the edge to Ohio State. So actually on defense, USC did not win a single matchup. They had toss-up at linebacker, but that's it. So Ohio State dominates on defense. For special teams, I'm going to give it to USC. Ryan Sori, the kicker, the former walk-on, what I said in that Oregon USC video, he's a Lou Groza Award finalist, 21 of 25 on field goals, was a perfect 48 of 48 on extra points, and he was 6 of 6 for all his kicks above 40 yards. For Ohio State, they got Connor Hawkins, who was clutch from 50-plus in game winners at Baylor last year against Kansas State and against SMU. But I will never pick Ohio State for special teams until they show it. They have to show it before I want to pick them. So for coaching, I'm going to give it to Ohio State. Ohio State's upgrading at OC with NFL former head coach Arthur Smith and returning the best DC in the country, and also NFL former head coach Matt Patricia, and with the best head coach in college football, Ryan Day. Maybe you want to say it's Cignetti or Kirby Smart, but Ryan Day is definitely top 2, maybe even top 3. If you want to lowball him, but I think he's number 1. I think he has the proven production over multiple years to be number 1 over Cignetti, but we'll see what Cignetti can do this year. For USC, they're returning their OC, and they're bringing in Gary Patterson from TCU at defensive coordinator. And really, USC has just improved so much from where they were a couple years ago on defense. They used to be like LSU 2023, bad defense, but now that actually they're decent. I think this year they could become a good to great defense. Good's like top 50, great's top 25. Definitely think they could get there. And also USC has the home field advantage. So at the end, Ohio State wins the matchup 7-4 with 2 ties. Ohio State won 7 matchups. USC won 4 matchups. And there were 2 toss-ups what were the toss-ups? It was linebacker and it was offensive line. So out of the 13 data points, Ohio State wins, decent win, 7-4-2. That's a decent win for them. And they take this one, but again, USC has home field advantage, but Ohio State does win the matchups by 3 points. So some of my personal thoughts for this game, I think this game, just like the Oregon USC game, will be much, much closer than people think. Ohio State still has massive advantages at personnel and coaching, and we just talked about that. But again, Ohio State, they play at Indiana. Rematch of the Big Ten championship, rematch of the past 2 national champions. That's one of the biggest games of the Culture Bowl year. And then after they have a bye week, which usually bye weeks will help them heal, help them prepare. But Ryan Day teams never play well off of byes. Look at the Miami game last year. Look how they played. They lost to Oregon, had a bye week, then played Nebraska at home, almost lost. Ohio State teams do not play well after bye weeks. And they have a bye week. Then they have at USC after that. And then after that, they play Oregon at home, which will be the #1 team in the country. And there's been so much hype about it potentially being a 3:30 night game with the black uniforms. There's going to be so many distractions that are going to be taking away from Ohio State and their players' attention where, I don't think they're going to forget about USC just because it's on the road against a good team at night, what we think. But just, will they get the best version of the Buckeyes? I don't really think so. I think Ohio State will be very occupied by either the emotion of the success or the failure from the Indiana game and with the bye week. And this is kind of a sneaky game on the road across the country. We know the record of East Coast teams going to the West Coast and West Coast teams going to the East Coast. When teams travel coast, it's not a pretty record. It's usually the home team wins. And this game will probably be a 3:30 or an NBC night game. Either way, the second half of this game will probably be at night. And I'm just saying, Ohio State should kill this team. I don't know. We Buckeye fans, we just watch out. Watch out for this game. But yeah, USC, they're losing a lot at receiver this year, which is kind of a first for USC. And so if this game is in a shootout, what I said earlier, if this game gets into the 30s and 40s, I don't know. Maybe I'll pick Ohio State. I don't know. I don't think Ohio State or USC can afford this game getting very high because they want to rely on the heavy personnel and their defenses. You look at how USC's new USC has a history of going 12 personnel with the tight ends, and we have Arthur Smith where that's what he does. So both of these teams want to keep it in that mid to high 20s. No one wants to get to 30 unless you're at 30 and they're at 14. But if this game both gets in the 30s, I would be very concerned, especially for USC, just because Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith. If this game gets in the 30s, he's going to get going, and he'll be a reliable target. And I could say 2, maybe 3 touchdowns to that game. For flying high, for these high-flying programs like Ohio State and USC, I think this game will look very NFL-like, and I think it'll probably be that mid to high 20s. And that's the other thing, is if this game gets into the 30s, Ohio State's defense, for USC, that's a little bit more feasible, you could see it. But for Ohio State's defense, whoa, we're allowing teams get in the 30s now. That's bad. If that happened, I would be very concerned about Ohio State's championship odds for this year. So my prediction for this game will be at USC, probably a 3:30 or a 7:30 game. Either way, the second half of this game will be in prime time. If you remember the Ohio State at Oregon game in 24, I said just what I just said. If this game gets in the 30s, I think it'll look very similar to that game. Will be as high scoring, 32-31. I don't think so, but I think this game could be very similar. I think USC probably scores first. Ohio State always usually lets the other team score first. And we'll have to make Ohio State kind of get their crap together, as they'll have to kind of really wake up and say, hey, we have to actually go win this game. We can't just play our game and just kind of just play average and just, if we don't play bad, we win. I think Ohio State's going to have to play good to win this game. I think both quarterbacks will have a pretty efficient and clean day. Maybe someone throws a pick, but I don't think we're going to have many fumbles or multiple interceptions or bad completion percentages. I actually think this game will be pretty clean. It'll be a pretty good quarterback performance, which is what everyone at home wants to see. I think both teams will have hard times carving up defenses. So I don't think anyone's going to get into like 350 passing yards, 400 passing yards. But I definitely think everyone, it'll be, 250 to 300, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Like, it'll be a pretty clean day for Julian and Jaden Maiava. I think Ohio State will have a close lead at half. I think it'll be up 17 to 13. I think USC probably kicks a late field goal to make it a 4-point game. And then coming into the second half, I think USC gets the ball. I think they probably kick a field goal. It's like 17 to 16. It's kind of a lower scoring, very tight game. Now in the middle of the third quarter, I think Chris Henry Jr. scores a touchdown, making an 8-point lead for Ohio State, 24 to 16. Now in the fourth quarter, I think USC kicks another field goal, making it 24 to 19. And just as I said, I think everyone's going to be playing clean. I think Julian Sand either fumbles or throws a pick. It'll probably be the only turnover of the night, but I think it comes late in a pivotal moment. He's a struggle with interceptions in big games. He almost had a fumble early in that Texas game. In the Michigan game, he had an interception. Indiana game had a bad interception. And then against Miami, he had the pick 6 when they could have, taken the lead or like really swung momentum back for Ohio State. And I think USC capitalizes after that. I think taking the short field, I think they get a touchdown. Don't think they get the 2-point conversion, but I think they take the lead 25 to 24. Oh, my light died. I think they take the lead 25 to 24 in the fourth. I think Ohio State, Ryan Day, he kind of tightens up a little bit, but I think they get in field goal range with 4 minutes left. They kick the field goal. They're up 27 to 25. And USC, I think they get a third down conversion, and now it's 3rd and long again. And I think there is maybe a missed ref call. There's some blown coverage, something shocking. I think USC gets a big play on a busted coverage, and they inch their way towards midfield. And eventually, with a minute left, they get to that, 35 yard line. That's like a 45, 50 plus, whatever. It's a long field goal. And I think they force Ohio State to burn their timeouts. And I think with this kind of weakened Ohio State linebacker room, I think Waymo Jordan or King Miller can get past, maybe they can get past Zion Grady. He's a freshman, maybe on a counter play or something. They get past that linebacker room. They get a first down. Now they're at the 30-yard line, and they can kind of run up this clock and, take a mid to long field goal, like a 38-yard field goal for the win. And if you're asking me, I think it happens. I think Ohio State takes their first loss of the season on the road at USC. And I know that's brutal. I know that it's brutal to older Ohio State fans. They're like, we're not going to lose to USC. What are you talking? It's impossible. Seemed pretty impossible to lose to Michigan in 24. Seemed pretty impossible to lose to Indiana last year. We thought we were way better. I mean, Ohio State, Ryan Day, seemed pretty impossible to lose to Missouri. You know what I mean? Like, this happens. The games like these happen. And right after Indiana, before Oregon, it's not the end of the world if Ohio State loses this game. It just kind of sucks as don't keep your undefeated season. But I think USC, has the upset on prime time on the road, 28 to 27. And for now, the Buckeyes have to kind of, pick themselves up across the road, fly back to Columbus, and prepare for what now is the number 1 team in the country in Oregon, in Columbus, which if you have not watched my Ohio State versus Oregon early prediction preview video, go watch it. Go watch it. That video didn't get a ton of views because YouTube didn't push it, but I know you guys would love that video, especially Ohio State fans. So go watch it if you have not watched. I'll pin it up here. My Ohio State versus Oregon early prediction. But again, I got the USC Trojans taking the win 28 to 27 as they upset the Buckeyes to give them their first loss of the season. All right, so if you guys enjoyed today's video, even if you're a Buckeye fan, I know it's not what you wanted, but I'm keeping it real. I predicted Ohio State to win a bunch. Go watch my early prediction playlist. We've done a ton of games. Some of the best videos on this channel are on that playlist. And Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana. If you're a Buckeye fan, go watch those. Go see my opinion on those. But yeah, for now, I got you taking the lead. But if you have not, please hit the subscribe button. We are so close to 400 subscribers. We are 8 subscribers away. It feels like we just got to 300. Now we're almost at 400, trying to get to 500 before the beginning of the college football season. And honestly, I think we could get to 1,000 before this. So if you want to help us try to get to 1,000 before the season starts, please help me out. Also hit the like button. It does nothing but help promote the show. My Oregon USC video, if you're a USC fan, go watch that. That video did very well. But again, that's all I have for you guys today. I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow. Let me know who you think is going to win in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow. And as always, thank you.